Most higher time frame supply and demand hit for a 1 to 3 minimum on the 5-minute chart, and in this video I'm going to show you guys how to draw up the higher time frame zones and scale them down to the 5-minute. Right here we have a regular 4-hour demand just like this. If you do not know how to draw up supply and demands, I do have a bunch of videos on my YouTube which you guys can go and watch, and I might put like 1 or 2 up how to just draw the same supply and demand setups that I draw, or zones that I draw. So this right here is a 4-hour demand, and now we're going to drop to the 1 hour and we're going to look for a 1 hour demand inside of the 4 hours. So as you can see, that is our 4-hour box, and you can see, okay, we have a 1 hour demand inside it as well. So I'm gonna just draw, I'm not gonna draw it like this because it's gonna get a little bit messy. I'm just gonna put a line for you guys. So right there, the main one is a 4-hour demand. So this one right here is the box is the 4-hour demand, and then we got a 1 hour demand, which is the first white line right there. I'm just gonna put this somewhere there. Okay, now inside of the 1 hour demand, now this line to the bottom there, we're gonna look for a 15-minute demand. Now let's see if we can drop to the 15-minute. We can see that there is actually another high probability demand inside of that right there. And now let's just put our text and just say, so the second white line is the 15-minute demand, 15 demand, just like that. Now I'm just gonna put this over to that side, and now inside of the 15-minute demand, we're gonna see if we can try and scale this down to the 5-minute my entry time frame. So if I had to have entered into this setup, I'm entering off of the 5-minute once the 5-minute gets tapped, and there we go. Just that last white line right there, that's our high probability 5-minute demand. So that's how we would draw the zone, just like that over there. Those two right there by those two lines, that is our 5-minute demand. And then let's just put a text box, 5-minute demand. All right, so now we have completely scaled the zone from the 4-hour to the 1 hour to the 15-minute to the 5-minute. Now we're gonna wait for it to eventually come and tap the 5-minute zone. So I wouldn't enter into anything like this unless we tap into the 5-minute zone, which is the last one right there. I'm just going to remove the 15-minute and the 1 hour just so we can look at the main zone that we're focusing on. So that the two white lines, that's what we're focusing on. And here we can see we finally tapped into the 5-minute demand. And if we just click again, we would have gotten break of candle into this 5-minute demand. So we would have entered right there. We would have had stops below, and you could have targeted whatever you want to. But in this case, you could have targeted this big gap right here, because it just makes sense that we're going to eventually come and fall in this gap. And we're in a 4-hour demand, we're in a 1 hour demand, and we're in a 15-minute demand. So it just makes a lot of sense to hold this longer than a 1 to 1, 1 to 2, or even a 1 to 3. And there you go, we would have gotten the 1 to 10 on that. But let's look at this even deeper. If we go here, so the box is the 4-hour demand, and we go onto the 5-minute, right? This is our 5-minute demand. This is how we draw regular 5-minute demands. I'm going to even remove the box just so it looks a little bit more clear. That's just a regular 5-minute demand. We had to push up, leaving a gap behind. So this is a regular 5-minute demand. And if we go over here, you can see that we literally tapped into that 5-minute demand and instantly left. Sometimes you're going to have a 1 hour demand, but you're not going to be able to scale the zone down. And now in this example, I'm going to show you how you can still take advantage of that 1 hour demand. So right here, we have a regular 1 hour demand, and I'm just going to skip straight to the 5-minute, and we drop down to the 5-minute. As you can see, inside of the 1 hour demand, we do not have a regular 5-minute demand that I would like taking. That's what I would have liked to take or mark out. But as you can see, that wick filled in the gap. So there's no gap attached to this 5-minute demand down here. So it's not completely invalid yet. So what I would do, I'm just going to delete the 1 hour demand. Just know we're inside the 1 hour demand. What I would do is to try and look for demands up in this area here. You would want to be looking for demands up in this area, maybe even somewhere up here. That's where you want to be looking for demands. And as I can see right now, there are two that actually end up getting hit. So this is what I do like taking, where we have 1 hour demand, and then later on, just once the 1 hour demand's given a little bit of reaction, I want to be taking 5-minute demands. So as you can see, here's our first demand that was valid. We had a breaker structure right there. We broke that minor high. We got a push down. We tapped in. We got a really nice rejection from the demand. You could have gotten in at break of the candle, and you could have went for your 1-to-1, whatever you would have went for. This one only managed to hit 1-to-1 and then continued up for the rest. But that's just what I'm looking at. This is what I want to see when I see a 1 hour demand. If I see a 4 hour demand, I'm trying to go to the 5-minute and look for like a 5-minute demand a little bit later on, not directly like inside of the 4 hour demand. And here's another one, just where another demand ended up holding. And you could have gotten in that for like a 1-to-2, it looks like it. Okay, a little bit under 1-to-2. So this is what I like taking. These are setups I like taking because we're in Confluence with the higher time frame. So the higher time frame is giving us a rejection or a push up from the 1 hour demand, or this is could go for supplies. And then we are looking for just a supply or demand a little bit later on, once there is a little bit of a rejection or reaction at the 1 hour or the 4 hour zone. Here in the next example, it is a 1 hour demand on NAS. And as you can see, this is a beautiful demand. And just looking not exactly at the demand, but look where the gaps are. On the higher time frame, you want to be looking where gaps are so you can take your lower time frame entries up to fill in those gaps. We have a big gap right there. We have a big gap right there. We know that these need to be filled. We actually even have a big gap right there. We know these need to get filled. If we zoom out even more, we have another big gap right up here. So we know the market has to come and fill in these gaps. So why not just try and look for a 5-minute entry that can come fill in these gaps? I'm not saying to take a 5-minute entry up to this big gap up here, because that really wouldn't make too much sense, but to definitely come and fill this gap here or this gap here. So let's just try and scale this down to the 5-minute. So we are on the 15-minute now, and you can see that there's no high probability demand inside of the 1 hour demand. We're going to go to the 5-minute and see if there's a 5-minute demand. As we can see here, there is a few demands, but they're not high probability, so I'm not looking at them. We got a demand there, we got a demand there. So those are two low probability demands. I'm not looking at those. I'm only looking at high probability demands. So since we only have a 1 hour demand, we are gonna wait for a demand to get created later on inside of the day, or once it's tapped inside of the demand, the 1 hour demand. Let's delete that gap there, and now let's just let this play out. And there we go. As you can see, there is a perfect demand. These are setups that I love taking because we have the 1 hour Confluence. We're inside a 1 hour demand. We know the higher time frame supply and demand like to hold a lot of the times. And just us having a 5-minute demand a little bit get created a little bit later on just works out so perfectly. And then let's zoom out a bit. And we had the one gap marked up top here. So there, I believe the gap is. That's the gap there. That's a 1-to-9 risk to reward. And let's see if that ends up getting tapped. So the 1-to-9 does not end up getting tapped within the 5-minute push. But as you can see, you could have still caught a 1-to-6. But I'm not trying to go for that. My max would be like a 1-to-3. So I would have happily have gotten my 1-to-3 with having 1 hour Confluence. Then we had a little bit of a retrace back down into the 1 hour demand, still respecting the 1 hour demand a lot. And as you can see, a little bit later on in the day, there was another 5-minute demand that you could have taken. So this just happens all the time. You could have gotten that break a candle there, stops below, and you could have aimed for whatever you were aiming for. And this push here does look like it's going to fill in all of the apps. So you just want to have a 1 hour demand, a 4 hour demand. Try and scale it down to the 5-minute. If you can't scale it down inside of the zone, like if you go back here and you can't find a 5-minute demand, wait for a 5-minute demand to get created once there's a push outside of the 1 hour or the 4 hour demand. These setups hit the best, they hit the most often, they give you the best risk to reward. This is the last example I've got for you guys, but let's break this down. Where do we have gaps? So on the 1 hour, we have a gap right there that needs to be filled. We have a gap right there that needs to be filled. So we can identify where gaps are. So we know the market needs to eventually come and push and fill those gaps. And we got liquidity sitting underneath this low here and this low here. So we know the market needs to eventually come and grab the liquidity, fill in the gap. We've got even more gaps down here, but that's going to take more time to eventually get into and fill. But let's see. So we got a regular 1 hour demand right here. And let's see if we can try to scale this down. If we go to the 5 minute, we can see that we can't scale the zone down. There's no high probability demand inside of this, inside of the 1 hour. So all we're going to do is wait for a supply to form a little bit later, once we've gotten a reaction from the 1 hour. And I can already see one that has been created, and one that is like a perfect supply to take once we get a 1 hour rejection or reaction at the 1 hour supply. Could have gotten that breaker candle, and what if you took this trade, you could have been aiming for the liquidity there, you could have been aiming for the 1 hour gaps there. There's just so many possibilities and things you could end up aiming for, and this just absolutely shredded all the way down. So these are setups that I'm looking for constantly. Like, these are the best setups out of every single type of different supply and demand here. Supply and demand where there's a 1 hour supply or demand, or even the 4 hour, and you can not scale that down to 5 minute, but find a supply or demand a little bit later on, just like here. These ones are the best, they hit the most, and just look where gaps are on the 1 hour, on the 4 hour, because we know the market needs to eventually come and fill those in. So just always look at the higher time frame, look if there's other supply and demands that you could target, look if there's gaps, look if we are inside a higher time frame supply or demand, and try and look what you can do on the 5 minute. But that's all I got. Make sure you guys keep grinding, keep getting to the next level, and I'll see you guys in the next video.